Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hussein Younes, I'm an AI engineer, and in today's video we're going to be talking about agent skills that Claude Code has introduced. Equipping agents for the real world with agent skills. Claude is powerful, but real work requires procedural knowledge and organizational context, introducing agent skills, a new way to build specialized agents using files and folders. As model capabilities improve, we can now build general purpose agents that interact with full-fledged computing environments. Claude Code, for example, can accomplish complex tasks across domains using local code execution and file systems, but these agents become more powerful. We need more composable, scalable, and portable ways to equip them with domain-specific expertise. So this leads us to create agent skills, which are organized folders of instructions, scripts, and resources that agents can discover and load dynamically to perform better at specific tasks. Basically, for example, like let's say you are working with UX UI design, like you're designing basically a UI, and then you don't want your agent to basically use this generic Claude Code UI designs, and you want to have like some specific skills in front-end design, for example, and give it like example themes or something like that. So whenever you're working with that and the agent has this skill, it's gonna go and use that skill to create some UI for you. So transforming general purpose agents into specialized agents that fit your needs. So building a skill for an agent is like putting together an onboarding guide for a new hire. Instead of building fragmented custom designs agents for each use case, anyone can now specialize their agents with composable capabilities by capturing and sharing their procedural knowledge. So that's the idea. It turns out that for specific tasks, you don't need to create a new agent and new tools from scratch or like a new architecture for every agent for every specific skill. This will be more complex and very difficult to scale. But what they're thinking about, or like the way they're approaching the problem, is that there is like a general purpose agent that has the core knowledge and knows how to interact with tools and perform tasks and follow instructions. So this kind of the core skill that any agent would have. And then you would basically create custom skills and give access to use these skills when needed. Agent plus skill plus virtual machine. Let's take a look. So we have agent configuration, which is the core system prompt. The equipped skills is like BigQuery, document, NDA review, PDF, PowerPoint, Excel, equipped MCP server 1, server 2, server 3. So MCP servers are like basically tools the agent used to interact with the external world. Go to the calendar, fetch emails, and it can perform a lot of like external tasks based on the MCP server that it has access to. Agent virtual machine, so it has like Bash, Python, Node.js, where it can basically execute code. And here, basically, the file system for the agent that the agent has access to basically has the skills. So the BigQuery skill, for example, as we see here, has the skill.md file, which is the markdown file that has the resources to explain the skills or like give the instructions for a specific skill. We will see that in a moment how it looks like. Data sources MD, rules data MD. We will see also what is that. The same for all other skills. So the agent by default has the access to the core system prompt, and then we give it access to skills by defining the resources that they need to have access to perform some task. And we also give them access to some MCP servers to give them access to the external world. Okay, now let's take a look at the anatomy of a skill. So to see skills in action, let's walk through a real example. Claude already knows a lot about understanding PDFs. It's limited in its ability to manipulate them directly. This PDF skill lets us give Claude these new capabilities. At its simplest, a skill is a directory that contains a skill.md file. As we have seen, it's just a file that contains the instruction. This file must start with the YAML formatter that contains some required metadata, like the name and description. At startup, the agent preloads the name and description for every skill into the system prompt. The metadata is the first level of progressive disclosure. This YAML, like this formatter, it has the name of the skill and the description of the skill. So it lets the agent know when to load the skill without loading the full skill at the beginning. So it's at the beginning, it only knows which skills it has access to, but when it needs to use one of these skills, it's gonna load the rest of the. So as skill grow in complexity, they may contain too much context to fit into skill.md. In these cases, skills can bundle additional files within the skill directory and reference them by name from skill.md, which Claude can choose to navigate and discover only as needed. Okay, so progressive disclosure is the core design principle that makes agent skills flexible and scalable. Skills let Claude load information only as needed. So first, as we have seen, only the metadata part, like the YAML part, which is the formatter that has the name and description, is always loaded into the prompt, which is around 100 tokens. So it's not a lot of tokens. And then when needed, when the agent needs to use a specific skill, it loads basically the skill.md body. It loads the whole contents of the skill.md file, and that's around like less than 5,000 tokens. And then when needed, when the agent needs more details to perform the skill, for example, in the example of the forms, like it needs access to how to fill forms, it's going to use the bundled files. So agents with file system and code execution tools don't need to read the entirety of a skill into their context window when working on a particular task. This means that the amount of context that can be bundled into a skill is effectively unbounded. So this is very interesting. Okay, so now skills and context window. So let's see how the context window looks like. So there's the agent system prompt, which is always loaded. And then we load basically the snippets from each skill appended to the system prompt. For example, BigQuery, Docs, PDF, PowerPoint, Excel sheet, that's always loaded. And now the user query, the user says, fill out this PDF based on what you know about me. The user attached the PDF file. So Claude at the beginning decides to trigger the PDF skill by reading it. Certainly, I'll use the PDF skill to help, and it decides to read the skill.md file. It has read the skill.md file, and so that we have forms.md file as well that basically explains how to fill forms. And because the user asked to fill out the PDF, Claude decided to read the forms.md file, and based on the contents of the forms.md file, it's going to perform the task that the user has asked for. By doing that, we gave a specific skill, which is basically filling PDF forms, and in this way, we don't need to have this skill always loaded in the context. We only trigger it when it's needed by the agent. Okay, so now skills and code execution. Large language models excel at many tasks, but certain operations are better suited for traditional code execution. For example, sorting a list via token generation is far more expensive than simply running a sorting algorithm, right? Many applications require the deterministic reliability that only code can provide. So again, for example, if you want to do some math operations, you don't want the agent to do the calculation by token generation, which is what happens by default, but rather you want to give the agent the tools to basically go and do this calculation. In our example, the PDF skill includes a pre-written Python script that reads the PDF and extracts all form fields. Claude can run the script without loading either the script or the PDF into context. And because code is deterministic, the workflow is consistent and repeatable. So here is what forms.md says. Fillable fields in the PDF has fillable forms. So fields run this script from this files directory, Python extract fields.py. This Python script is not loaded into the context, which enables repeatability and consistency. And this script extract fields that are fillable in the form. Okay, so developing and evaluating skills. Here are some helpful guidelines for getting started with authoring and testing skills. Start with evaluation. Identify specific gaps in your agent's capability by running them on a representative task and observing where they struggle or require additional context. Then build skills incrementally to address these shortcomings. They ask you basically to identify the issues or the main issues that repeatedly happen in your workflow that requires basically more and additional context that you don't necessarily need to add immediately to the agent system prompt, but you can basically wrap it into a skill that you can give the agent access to. Structure for scale. When the skills.md file become unwieldy, split its content into separate files, reference them. So this is basically what they've done with the forms.md file. So do not make the skill.md file very large because, as we have seen, the skill.md file is going to be directly loaded into the context window. You can split it into chapters or sections, and you can reference them inside the skill.md file. Okay, now think from Claude's perspective. Monitor how Claude uses your skill in real scenarios and iterate based on the observations. Watch for unexpected trajectories and over-reliance on certain contexts. Pay special attention to the name and description of your skill. Claude will use these when deciding whether to trigger a skill in response to its current task. The name and the description of the skill are the main things that make Claude actually uses the skill. The description should be detailed enough and obvious enough for the agent to be able to use your skill efficiently. Of course, you're gonna test and iterate to see basically how Claude uses them in real scenarios, and you're gonna basically adjust to improve that. So iterate with Claude as you work on the task with Claude. Ask Claude to capture its successful approaches and common mistakes into reusable context and code within a skill. If it goes off track when using a skill to complete the task, ask it to self-reflect on what went wrong. This process will help you discover what context Claude actually needs instead of trying to anticipate upfront. They're asking you basically to debug or iterate using Claude itself. So you ask Claude what additional context it needs, why it couldn't complete this task, and what was missing to be able to do it. Get this feedback from Claude and add it back to your skills.md file or to the reference of the bundled content. So security considerations. Skills provide Claude with new capabilities through instructions and code. While this makes them powerful, it also means that malicious skills may introduce vulnerabilities in the environment where they are used. So if you see something online, you see something, I don't know, on Reddit, or you see some skill that someone is sharing, do not just blindly add it to your agent. You have to be careful and you have to read it, because it gives Claude access to resources, and it also asks Claude to execute code, which can be very dangerous in some cases. So the future of skills, agent skills are supported today across Claude.ai, the Claude Agent SDK, and the Claude Developer Platform. Looking further ahead, we hope to enable agents to create, edit, and evaluate skills on their own. This is very interesting. They want to enable basically agents to create their own skills to solve some tasks that you direct them to do, letting them codify their own patterns of behavior into reusable capabilities. We're excited to see what people build with skills. Get started today by checking the cookbook, and you can see the Claude's cookbook. You can clone this repository, and you can see this notebook, which is called Skills Introduction. You can run it, and you can see how basically the skills.md file looks in reality, and how you can give access to your agent to this skills.md file. And if you have any questions, or you like run into issues, or you need any help, don't hesitate to basically ask me in the comment section, or also you can join my school so you can directly chat with me. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.